It's my feel-good breakfast show.
It gives me so much pleasure to welcome you to another episode of INGRAMS Skin Sessions, which is a thought-provoking campaign that encourages those brave conversations, which are more than just skin deep. What are we delving into today? Well, today we are unpacking a brand new topic, #Indoda must, which translates to a man must. And it's trended for all the right and, of course, all the wrong reasons on social media, which makes it a tasty proposition for today.
The South African Depression and Anxiety Group sounded the alarm in September 2021 over the high rate of suicide in South Africa. And with South Africa experiencing one of the highest male suicide rates globally, we want to unpack what could be triggering this and what are the underlying issues that cause men to be silent about their emotions. Now, this morning, we are joined by political analyst, journalist and broadcaster Eusebius, McKaiser, as well as comedian, actor, TV personality and Graham's best friend, Mpho Pops, today to unpack this topic a little bit further. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Stop smiling now.
I love you guys. No, you don't understand. No, you don't know a man until you've had a dance-off against one another in front of 8 million people, okay? I'm sorry, there's a line in the sand, all right? Eusebius, I'm going to start with you, though, because this is a topic we've touched on before, and it's something that's become almost polarizing. Toxic masculinity. We focus on the negative stereotypes, but then we've seen this pushback now where men are saying, but no, it's not toxic to be masculine. It shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be toxic. What do you make of that term in itself? And how have you wrapped your head around this as a man?
I do think that masculinities are mostly toxic across society. And what I mean by that is that we raise little boys to have certain expectations on themselves of what it means to be an acceptable male in the world. You can't cry, you can't have emotion, you can't show vulnerability. You have to fight in the playground and win. You've got to be competitive and not just enjoy sport for its own sake. Those are the kind of social messaging that comes with being embodied as male. And I think that's toxic because it leads to suicidality. It leads to bullying behavior on your part as the toxically raised male. Once you are in the workplace, in relationships, we feel deficient if we can't provide because #Indoda must be able to pay when you go out to the restaurant. So it's that kind of uncoding and messaging that leads to problems.
Mpho?
Yes.
Graham loves you, but we love you more, only because you opened up this dialogue about depression. Recently, you admitted yourself into a mental health facility and, were seeking professional help to address your depression. What led to this depression and where are you now? How are you doing right now?
I think what led to this depression, in not so many words, is Indoda must. I think I've put so much pressure on myself to look after not only me, but my family. And if you go to therapy, you'll understand that there's certain things that are triggered from childhood traumas. And then what you do in therapy is you explore what those childhood traumas are, right? And what some of mine were, I had a grandfather who provided for the whole family. So I had a grandfather who looked after everyone. And when we lost him, it collapsed our family. And I mean, I was this 11-year-old boy, and I saw what it did to my family. And I made an oath and a promise that I would be the guy to take over from him. So here are these big shoes, here are these little feet saying...
Which was impossible.
Yeah, right? And I mean, I started working from a young age. I think I had my first job when I was 14, and I haven't stopped working since. And every time I work, I make sure I bring it home. There's this saying in our culture that your first paycheck must go home.
Yeah.
So I've always put this pressure on myself to look after my family, to look after everyone else, and I never looked after me. So it got to a point where I was burnt out, I was stressed out, and I got to a point where I realized if I don't do anything about this, it's going to end badly. And I did the one thing that I implore anyone out there watching to do. When I reached that point, I was able to put up my hand and ask for help.
Sure.
And when I did, that's how I ended up checking into a wellness center.
By virtue of the fact that you can see I'm almost about to burst out crying, give us an indication of why we probably are so connected, because we've grown up in a feminine energy.
Yeah.
Okay, for most of our lives, we've had that. which is a gift. I know this has come with a lot of other complexities for you, but there is in that an opportunity for us to understand what it means to ask for help and those sorts of emotional things that we normally deny ourselves as men. And when you talk about it was going to end badly, what that means in South Africa, to put it in context, is 4 times higher suicide rate in men than women in South Africa.
Yes.
That's how far in Daughter Must can go. How then do we raise young men who are emotionally equipped to be able to ask for help? I've had to do it over the last couple of years, and it's, without a doubt, out of all of the challenges I've faced, the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. How do we overcome that?
It is. You know, it's so true. It's the most like with me, you know, like, and I think you're so right, Eusebius, in the sense that we need to rewrite these things that we were taught. That a man mustn't cry, a man mustn't. I'm an emotional man. If a movie's good enough, I'm gonna cry. You know what I mean?
If an advert is good enough, I'm gonna cry.
You know? But I grew up in a society that told me that if I react emotionally to something, it has something to do with my sexual orientation. And it has nothing to do with that. I'm an emotional being. You know what I mean? And even in what I do, I'm not just a comedian, right? I stand on stage and I tell jokes, but that's not what I do. I'm an emotional DJ. Because when I'm up there, I play with your emotions. I make you think, I make you laugh. I think we need to start having a conversation around the fact that it's okay, especially for men, to display our emotion, right? And I think this whole narrative of Indoda must, I think Indoda must be in tune with his emotions. One of the things I realized in my wellness and my recovery, I realized that half of the battle is just looking after yourself. And I think we are always trying to chase making other people in society happy and not looking after ourselves.
Can I add 2 things to that to answer your question? If there are just 2 things, if you have young boys that are entrusted into your care, that we should do as older siblings, as father figures, as uncles, it's the one is to role model expressing emotion. I think I was an adult the first time I actually said to my dad, comfortably, I love you.
Wow.
And my dad saying that to me.
Because you know dads are weird.
Well, now he does it with gay abandon. Like, he can't stop telling me that he loves me, right?
The floodgates have opened,
And then the other thing to do is to give your son permission, and it starts by role modeling is the best way to do it, to cry.
Yes.
And those are very simple things. So if you take nothing else away from this conversation, men should role model crying and expressing love to each other. It's amazing how many men are not comfortable to utter the words, I love you.
I love you. And cry. Can I just say, and I'm speaking to the men, sorry to...
I'm raising a little
It's not often that
Okay.
this dynamic works like this, so soak it up, buddy, soak it up.
How good do you feel after a cry?
Yeah, oh, for
Yes.
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So good, I almost feel like crying again.
Yes. Like, crying is therapeutic.
Absolutely.
You feel good after crying.
There's a reason why we have that physical switch.
Yes.
There is a reason for it.
But I think all of you have done the work. You've, accepted what you have, and now you know that you have a responsibility to change the narrative. Knowing what you know now, do you feel like men put unnecessary pressure on themselves to be that provider, to go out there and always be the head of the house? And this is the question to both of you.
Yeah.
No, we do put that pressure on, but I think we've got to exactly do what Mpho was saying and change the narrative. We've got to be the change that we wish to see in the world. You've got to be intentional in your parenting, intentional in your mentoring to begin to change that script. That's the only way it's going to happen. And to, accept that this is a journey. It's not going to be one event and suddenly we all have healthy masculinities. To unlearn those habits will take time. But I think it's important to sit in circles, literally and figuratively, where you give each other psychic permission to be male in different ways than the ways in which we were taught.
And I think with Indoda must, I think right now it's society who's putting that pressure. Especially if you look at the culture we live in now, the party culture, the you should look after me culture. Everyone is going, if you look on social media, Indoda must, Indoda must. And I feel like we live in a world where we're trying to raise equal kids.
Yeah.
But we are living in a society that says, no, Indoda still must. We live in a world where in South Africa, the females are being more empowered than men.
Yeah.
So we're going to grow up in a generation where we have more women who have more money than the men in the society. But yet, right now, we're still saying indoda must. Indoda must settle the bill. Indoda must do all of this. So I think as a society, we need to be careful about what we're perpetuating with this whole indoda must.
Even as I hear you guys say these words, the pressures, and I'm thinking about it right now, of what I need to do for my family, to look after them. Sometimes you just got to muscle up and do it. But how do we find that balance then? What should we be telling those young boys in that space? And I think it's, for me, as soon as I had a boy and a girl, suddenly it became a very different conversation because now I want the same for both of them. But how do we change that societal understanding of what messaging we should be giving boys? Is it a pipe dream to think that we'll get to that point?
Sorry you should say that, because this will sound like a pipe dream, but I think we've got to try and set the goal and the bar very high. Yes. I think the way to break all of this toxicity is to aim deliberately to de-emphasize gender roles completely.
Completely, yeah.
When you raise your son or your daughter, don't ask yourself, how can I get my son to be a healthy, masculine young man? Rather ask yourself, how can I raise this little person to be a decent person? Whether they are male, female, gender non-conforming, that's neither here nor there. You should aim to raise a person that is decent with certain fundamental values in their knapsack as they go through life. And the problem starts with essentializing gender. When you even frame this parenting challenge as, what kind of boy do I want to raise? I think you're already asking the wrong question.
Yeah. Oh, as a parent, I cannot thank you guys enough for being a part of this dialogue with me. Sorry if I've gotten a little bit emotional through this process.
No. Don't be sorry.
Okay.
Don't have to be.
Indoda must be emotional.
Exactly.
Yeah, here we go.
Absolutely.
We need to continue clearly to shine the spotlight on toxic and fragile masculinity, reframe the whole conversation, as well as men's evolving role in society. Men should be encouraged, not told must, but encouraged to share their feelings, to share their emotions openly without judgment. I know it's a journey to get there, but we need to focus on it. It's vital that these brave conversations continue to happen so that men can develop well-defined sense of self, and we can impart that to the next generation of boys and men coming up.
Absolutely. Now remember, join the brave conversation and stand a chance to win a R1,000 cash prize with INGRAMS every single week. Now, last chance to enter this week's competition. Simply reply to the competition post on the Expresso Facebook, Twitter or Instagram page by telling us why living life at your own pace is so important to you. Now, don't forget to include that hashtag, Your Skin, Your Brave. This week's competition closes at midday today. And remember, those T's and C's can be found on our website, expressoshow.com. Get entering right now.
Good luck.
Do you own your skin? Do you wear it bravely, even when others try to dim its glow? Does it represent your strength, your heritage, or does it express your brave and unconditional love? New look INGRAMS, your skin, your brave.